Let me ask you something. Have you ever woken up feeling like your brain's still in bed, foggy, slow, like you're only running on 70% of your mental horsepower? Or maybe you hit a wall in the afternoon. Your focus slips, your patience thins, and your motivation flatlines, even when you slept fine and ate what you thought was healthy. Here's what most people don't realize. That fog, that sluggishness, that invisible weight pulling at your energy often isn't just about sleep or stress or even diet. Sometimes it's a missing micronutrient. And I'm not talking about exotic powders or trendy supplements. I mean foundational, brain and body critical vitamins that quietly drive your neurological performance, mood regulation, immune resilience, and even how you age. Here's the science. Your brain doesn't store most vitamins the way your muscles store glycogen. Many of them, especially the B vitamins, vitamin D, and others we'll cover, are water-soluble or used up rapidly during stress, mental effort, and inflammation. Which means if you're not replenishing them daily, your system starts running on a biochemical deficit, and your brain feels it first. In fact, studies from Harvard, Oxford, and the NIH have shown direct links between certain vitamin deficiencies and things like brain fog, mood instability, memory loss, muscle weakness, even increased risk of neurodegenerative disease over time. The good news? These are fixable, not with hacks, but with habits. So today we're going to look at 6 essential vitamins and how keeping them in your daily rhythm can genuinely transform how you feel, think, and perform. We'll break down why these vitamins matter on a neurological and cellular level, what the research shows about their role in cognition, focus, and energy. Easy, actionable ways to make sure you're getting what your brain and body need without obsessing over pills or perfection. And no, you don't need to overhaul your life. Just a few small, consistent shifts. Because when your brain gets what it's been missing, things change. First, let's dive in. Let's start with a heavy hitter, vitamin B12. This one is like the ignition switch for your nervous system. Without enough of it, your brain struggles to turn glucose, your body's main fuel, into usable energy. And the symptoms? They're sneaky, subtle, easy to write off. Low motivation, poor concentration, feeling anxious for no clear reason. Or the classic one, you're tired but wired. Now here's what's fascinating. According to a study published in the American Journal of Psychiatry, even marginal B12 deficiency, not full-blown, just on the low end, was associated with a significantly higher risk of depression and cognitive decline, especially in people in their 40s to 60s. That's not extreme malnutrition. That's just not enough for optimal brain function. Another study out of Tufts University showed that about 39% of adults in the United States have B12 levels low enough to impact energy metabolism, memory, and mood without even knowing it. So what's happening in your brain when you don't get enough? B12 is essential for making myelin, the insulation around your neurons. Without it, your neural signals slow down. Communication between brain regions gets fuzzy. Tasks feel harder. You might find yourself rereading the same sentence 5 times or zoning out mid-conversation. It also plays a key role in producing neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. So when B12 is lacking, your ability to regulate emotions and stay motivated starts to degrade. Now, let's bring this down to earth. If you're vegan or vegetarian or over the age of 50, your risk of B12 deficiency is much higher. That's because B12 comes mostly from animal products, and as we age, our ability to absorb it through the gut declines. A simple tool to apply is this. Get your B12 levels tested during your next blood panel. It's a quick, inexpensive marker that can tell you if you're in that low normal range that still affects cognition. And if you're supplementing, look for methylcobalamin, a bioavailable form that your body can absorb more efficiently than cyanocobalamin, which is cheaper but harder to process. The dose. Most adults do well with 250 to 500 micrograms daily if supplementing. But check with your healthcare provider, especially if you're on medications like metformin or proton pump inhibitors, which deplete B12 over time. You can also increase foods like eggs, grass-fed beef, and sardines if you're omnivorous. For plant-based folks, fortified nutritional yeast and B12 supplements are essential. Let me pause here for a second. If this insight is helping you understand what might be affecting your energy and mental sharpness, consider subscribing to the channel. We break down science like this every week, always with tools you can actually use. Back to B12. What I've seen again and again, in research and in real life, is this. People think they're burned out, or lazy, or just getting older. And yes, sometimes it's psychological, but sometimes it's biochemical. You fix what's missing under the surface, and suddenly the mind starts firing again. You feel like you again. So don't overlook this one. B12 isn't flashy, but it's foundational, and your brain knows when it's missing. Vitamin number 2, vitamin D, the silent hormone that shapes your mood, immunity, and mental resilience. Most people think of vitamin D as the bone health vitamin. What they don't realize is it's not even technically a vitamin. It's a neurosteroid hormone, and it plays a powerful regulatory role in brain development, immune function, and mood regulation. Here's what the research shows. A large meta-analysis published in the Journal of Affective Disorders found that people with low vitamin D levels were significantly more likely to experience depression, even when controlling for other factors like age, gender, and physical activity. And when vitamin D levels were restored, many participants saw a marked improvement in mood, motivation, and energy within a few weeks. So what's going on under the hood? Vitamin D acts like a volume knob for your immune and nervous systems. It regulates the expression of over 1,000 genes, including many involved in inflammation and neurotransmitter synthesis, particularly serotonin, which affects mood, sleep, and emotional regulation. Low vitamin D levels have also been linked to slower information processing speed, poor memory consolidation, and increased brain fog, especially during the darker months or in people who spend most of their time indoors. Here's a question for you. Have you ever noticed your energy and mood dip during the winter or after a string of cloudy days? That's not just seasonal blues. That's your brain asking for vitamin D. What's tricky is that you can't really feel a deficiency happening until symptoms appear, and by then, you're likely well below optimal. Here's what you can do. First, get your 25-hydroxy vitamin D levels tested. That's the gold standard blood marker. Optimal range for most people, around 40 to 60 nanograms per milliliter. Not just the minimum to avoid rickets, but the level associated with peak immune and cognitive performance. If your levels are low, most adults benefit from 2,000 to 5,000 IU per day, ideally taken with a meal that contains fat for better absorption. But again, check with your physician because vitamin D is fat-soluble and too much can cause issues too. Now let's talk sunlight, because this is where it gets practical. Vitamin D is synthesized in your skin when UVB light hits it, but the angle of the sun, your latitude, time of year, and skin pigmentation all influence how much you actually make. For example, someone living in Northern Europe or the Northern United States might go 6 to 8 months a year without producing any meaningful vitamin D from the sun, even if they're outside. So if you work indoors, live far from the equator, or avoid sun exposure, supplementation becomes less of an option and more of a necessity. And if you're thinking, can't I just eat more vitamin D-rich foods? Here's the reality. Even the best sources like fatty fish, egg yolks, and liver only give you a fraction of what your body needs. They help, but they're not enough to fix a serious deficit. A simple protocol? Get sunlight on your bare skin, arms and face at minimum, for 10 to 15 minutes per day during peak UV hours, ideally around midday. Then use blood work to determine whether food and light are enough, or whether you need a supplement to fill the gap. Vitamin D isn't just about bones. It's about mental clarity, emotional regulation, and immune resilience. When you get it right, things feel lighter, your mood stabilizes, your energy picks up, and your system just works better. Vitamin number 3, vitamin B6, the unsung hero of focus, calm, and emotional regulation. If you ever find yourself overstimulated but can't focus, emotionally reactive but mentally drained, there's a good chance your nervous system is low on vitamin B6. B6 doesn't get as much attention as B12 or D, But here's what's wild. Your brain cannot properly make or regulate key neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and norepinephrine without it. And without those, everything starts to unravel. Mood, attention, sleep, even your ability to respond to stress with clarity instead of chaos. A fascinating study published in Human Psychopharmacology found that higher B6 levels were directly linked to lower anxiety and improved stress resilience, particularly in people exposed to chronic mental demands. Another study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that B6 supplementation improved working memory and attention span, especially in individuals under 35. So what's happening in your brain? Think of B6 as the enzyme assistant that helps convert amino acids into functional neurochemicals. Without it, your body has the raw ingredients, but not the machinery to put them to work. You may be eating enough protein, getting enough rest, but if B6 is low, your nervous system still struggles to stay balanced. Here's a relatable analogy. It's like trying to build a house with all the bricks and wood you need, but no nails. Everything falls apart under pressure. Now, let's talk sources and practical application. Vitamin B6 is found in foods like chickpeas, potatoes, bananas, tuna, and chicken. But here's where it gets tricky. Stress, alcohol, birth control pills, and even some antidepressants deplete B6 faster than usual. And because B6 is water-soluble, like B12, your body doesn't store much of it. That means a consistent daily intake matters more than a weekly catch-up. So what's the move? If you're eating whole foods daily and managing stress well, you may be covered. But if your life is fast-paced, screen-heavy, mentally demanding, or you've noticed mood swings or brain fog creeping in, consider a supplement of around 1.3 to 2 milligrams per day, or up to 20 to 50 milligrams under the guidance of a healthcare provider for therapeutic use. Important note, more isn't better. Very high doses of B6 over time can cause nerve issues. So stay within safe limits and use food as your foundation whenever possible. Here's a quick checklist. Constantly feel overstimulated but tired? Struggle with emotional reactivity, anxiety, or focus? Eat mostly processed foods or skip meals under stress. If yes to any of those, this could be your missing link. A simple habit: build B6 rich foods into your first meal of the day. Try oatmeal with banana and sunflower seeds, or eggs and sweet potato. You'll start fueling your focus and stabilizing your brain chemistry before the stress hits. And if you've made it this far in the video, let me say thank you and invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. This channel is about giving you real tools, grounded in research, to optimize your mind and body one habit at a time. And if that's what you're after, you're in the right place. In the next section, we're shifting gears toward a vitamin most people associate with vision, but it actually plays a critical role in cognitive health, cellular repair, and even protection against neurodegenerative disease. Let's talk vitamin A and how your brain uses it in ways most people never hear about. Vitamin number 4, vitamin A, the brain's hidden ally for repair, learning, and long-term clarity. Most people hear vitamin A and think of eyesight. And yes, it's critical for vision. But here's the thing. Vitamin A isn't just about seeing the world. It's also about how your brain processes the world, learns from it, and recovers from damage over time. What most people don't know is that vitamin A is essential for neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to grow, adapt, and rewire itself in response to new experiences. It also plays a direct role in cellular repair, inflammation control, and cognitive resilience, especially as we age. Let's start with the science. A paper published in the Journal of Neuroscience found that vitamin A regulates genes involved in neuronal growth and synaptic plasticity. In other words, it helps keep your brain flexible, literally, so you can learn new things, adapt under pressure, and bounce back from stress or trauma. Low levels of vitamin A have been associated with slower learning, reduced memory consolidation, and even higher risk of neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's. And not because of some rare deficiency, but because many adults simply don't consume enough of the usable form of vitamin A on a daily basis. Here's what's going on behind the scenes. Vitamin A comes in two main forms: Preformed vitamin A, found in animal products like liver, eggs, and dairy. Beta-carotene, found in plants like carrots, sweet potatoes, and leafy greens. Now, beta-carotene is often hyped as a great source of vitamin A. But here's the truth. Only a small percentage of it actually converts into the active form your brain needs, called retinoic acid. And that conversion process can be even less efficient if you have gut issues, thyroid imbalances, or genetics that reduce enzyme activity. So, someone might be eating tons of carrots and still be functionally low in the form of vitamin A that actually affects brain health. What's happening in your brain when this is low? You start to lose efficiency in cellular repair, especially in glial cells, which support neurons and help clear out waste from the brain. You may feel mentally sluggish, have a harder time forming new memories, or notice you're more sensitive to stress and sensory overload. Here's a practical protocol. If you're omnivorous, include egg yolks, grass-fed butter, or small portions of liver once a week. Even just 1 ounce of beef liver provides well over your daily needs in its active form. If you're plant-based, combine beta-carotene-rich foods like sweet potato, spinach, and bell peppers with healthy fats like olive oil or avocado, because vitamin A is fat-soluble, and that helps absorption. And regardless of diet, don't overdo it with supplements. Too much preformed vitamin A can be toxic over time, so always check dosage, especially if you're pregnant or taking other medications. Here's a quick test. Do you feel like your learning has plateaued? Is your mental recovery from stress slower than it used to be? Do you struggle with nighttime vision or dry eyes too? These could be signs your vitamin A status is low. Not dangerously low, but low enough to matter for how sharp, flexible, and resilient your brain feels day to day. There's a simple power in this. When your brain can repair itself faster and adapt more easily, life doesn't feel as overwhelming. You bounce back. You retain more. You stay calm under pressure. And often, that shift starts with what you're consistently feeding your cells. Next, we'll look at a vitamin that's less about the brain directly and more about protecting everything that keeps your brain alive. Let's get into vitamin E and how it shields your cells from silent damage every single day. Vitamin number 5, vitamin E, your brain's frontline defense against aging and oxidative stress. Most of us don't think about what's happening to our brain at rest. No loud symptoms, no obvious problem, but underneath, there's a constant battle. Free radicals, oxidative stress, inflammation. They sound like distant medical terms, but here's what they really are. Microscopic forces that damage your cells every single day. Vitamin E is one of your brain's most powerful defenses against that damage. Here's what the research shows. A study from the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that individuals with higher levels of vitamin E, particularly the alpha-tocopherol form, had significantly slower rates of cognitive decline over time. Even in adults over 70, those with optimal levels retained sharper memory, better executive function, and reduced signs of neurodegeneration. Another study from Rush University Medical Center tracked older adults over 6 years and found that people who consumed the most vitamin E-rich foods had up to a 25% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. So what's happening here? Every time your brain processes energy, fights infection, or responds to stress, it produces oxidative byproducts. Think of them like smoke from a fire. If those byproducts aren't cleared or neutralized, they begin to damage neurons, disrupt DNA, and accelerate aging. Vitamin E acts like a fire extinguisher, neutralizing those free radicals before they cause long-term harm. It protects the lipid membranes of your brain cells, which are especially vulnerable, since your brain is nearly 60% fat by weight. Here's a simple analogy. Imagine your brain is a high-performance engine. It runs hot, fast, efficient, but only if you keep it cool and clean. Vitamin E is like the high-grade oil that prevents the engine from burning out. So why are so many people deficient? Because vitamin E isn't abundant in the modern diet. Highly processed foods strip it out. And most people don't eat the unrefined oils, seeds, or greens that naturally contain it. Here's where to get it from: sunflower seeds, almonds, hazelnuts, spinach and Swiss chard, avocado, cold-pressed olive oil or sunflower oil. To absorb vitamin E properly, pair it with fat, since, again, it's fat-soluble. A simple breakfast idea: a handful of almonds with half an avocado and olive oil drizzle greens. Quick, absorbable, effective. What about supplements? If you're not getting enough from food, a natural mixed tocopherol supplement is generally preferred over synthetic alpha-tocopherol because your body recognizes it more effectively. Aim for 100 to 200 IU per day, but always cycle and consult with your physician. Overdoing it long-term can affect blood clotting, especially if you're on medication. Now, let's bring this back to real life. If your brain feels more reactive lately, if your focus breaks down under stress, or if you're starting to notice memory slipping, even just a little, this might be the underlying cause. Silent damage accumulating in the background. The good news? Vitamin E isn't about boosting today's mood or chasing energy. It's about protecting your future, preserving clarity, mental sharpness, and resilience well into your 50s, 60s, and beyond. There's strength in knowing this, that you're not just surviving your day, but actively defending your brain from what wears it down most. Now, there's one more vitamin to cover, one that doesn't just support your brain, but actually helps build it. Vitamin number 6, folate, the architect of memory, mood, and mental sharpness. Let's talk about folate, also known as vitamin B9. This one doesn't get enough credit. Yet behind the scenes, it's shaping the way your brain wires itself, handles stress, processes information, and even remembers who you are. Here's what most people don't realize. Folate is essential for a process called methylation, a chemical tagging system that turns genes on and off, helps neurons repair themselves, and drives the production of neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. It's also crucial for DNA synthesis and repair, which means low folate equals higher risk of DNA damage, slower neural recovery, and long-term cognitive decline. Here's what the research shows. A study published in The Lancet found that individuals with low folate levels had a significantly higher risk of depression, cognitive decline, and even structural brain changes in regions tied to memory and executive function. Another study from Tufts University showed that older adults with low folate had a greater risk of Alzheimer's disease and poor memory performance, even when they were otherwise healthy. But it's not just about aging. Low folate affects young adults too, especially those under high cognitive load, poor diet, or chronic stress. It can make focus harder, mood flatter, and learning slower. And here's where it gets more personal. A large part of the population, especially people of European, Asian, and Middle Eastern descent, carry a genetic variation in a gene called MTHFR that makes it harder to convert folic acid, the synthetic form, into usable folate. So even if you're taking a multivitamin or eating fortified bread, your brain might not be getting what it needs. This is why we focus on the active form, methylfolate. It bypasses that genetic bottleneck and gives your brain what it can actually use immediately and efficiently. So how do you apply this? Start with food. Real, folate-rich food. Dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, romaine, lentils, and black beans. Avocados, asparagus, beets, and citrus fruits. Then, if you're supplementing, especially if you're pregnant, under high stress, or feeling mentally stuck, look for L-methylfolate, not folic acid. The usual dose ranges from 400 to 800 micrograms/day. But check your blood work and talk with your doctor before going higher. One thing to know, folate works best in synergy, especially with B6 and B12. Together, they regulate methylation, protect neurons, and help produce the very chemicals that let your brain think, feel, and adapt. A question for you. Have you been feeling emotionally flat? Not depressed, just kind of disconnected? That's one of folate's warning signs. And often, fixing it isn't about adding more dopamine or stimulation. It's about giving your system the building blocks it's quietly been running low on. Think of folate as the architect. It's helping your brain lay down structure every day. The scaffolding for new memories. The frame for better emotional control. The invisible foundation of resilience. You don't need extreme protocols to feel sharper and more balanced. You just need the right materials consistently. Now that we've explored all 6 of these essential vitamins, B12, D, B6, AE, and folate, it's time to pull the lens back. Keep these vitamins daily. Your brain and body will transform. Recap and challenge. We've covered a lot. 6 vitamins that quietly but powerfully shape how your brain and body function every day. Here's the big picture. Vitamin B12 fuels your brain's energy and keeps your neural wiring sharp. Without it, motivation and memory take a hit. Vitamin D acts as a hormone regulating mood, immunity, and brain plasticity. It's your emotional and immune volume knob. Vitamin B6 is the enzyme helper that turns raw ingredients into neurotransmitters, the chemicals behind your focus, calm, and emotional balance. Vitamin A supports your brain's ability to repair, learn, and adapt. It's the architect keeping your mental scaffolding flexible and strong. Vitamin E defends your brain cells against oxidative damage, the silent fire that can erode memory and clarity over time. And folate is the methylation master, managing gene expression, DNA repair, and neurotransmitter production that underpins mood and cognition. What this really means is that your brain isn't just waiting on motivation or willpower. It's asking for consistent, daily nutrition to function at its best, especially these vitamins that many people overlook. The good news? You don't need a complex supplement stack or a perfect diet. Small, consistent actions, eating key foods, getting sunlight, testing your levels, and supplementing thoughtfully can transform your focus, mood, energy, and long-term brain health. Here's a simple challenge to try today. Pick one vitamin we covered that feels most relevant to you. Maybe it's B12 if you feel foggy, or vitamin D if you notice mood dips in low light. Start by adding a food rich in that vitamin to your next meal. Or if you're ready, schedule a quick blood test to check your levels. Small steps compound, and over time, your brain and body will thank you. Before we finish, if you found this deep dive helpful, please like this video and leave a comment with which vitamin you want to focus on first. Your feedback helps shape what we explore next and build a community of people serious about optimizing mental and physical health. And if you haven't already, subscribe. There's a lot more coming, science-driven, practical, and designed to help you take control of your mind and body without the noise. Thanks for spending this time here today. Remember, your brain is not fixed. It's a dynamic system that thrives when you give it what it needs. Keep these vitamins daily and watch how your mind and body transform. See you in the next video.